Hey Whitney, have you noticed that the old ways of working aren't working anymore?
Yes, Iris. Let's talk about it. I'm Whitney.
And I'm Iris. We are two elite executive coaches / moms / recovering Olympians. We found that we had to unlearn so much of what we were taught as elite athletes and women to gain more freedom and health.
And we've seen our clients facing the same dilemmas. As coaches, we get this front row view of high-performing humans. And we realize we're all trying to make the best out of our potential, both at work and at home.
We will take you behind the curtain and share with you how we untrain our clients and ourselves from toxic mindsets and habits. We will offer you the frameworks and tools to live and work with more ease and joy.
Welcome to Untrained. Welcome to Untrained 2023. Iris, I think we have to talk about New Year's resolutions, goal setting, intention setting, all that jazz, right?
I think when you and I talk about it, we talk less about goals because that feels really like hard and difficult. And we talk about intention setting.
Yeah, so we're untraining a little bit from those hard and fast goals and retraining around intention setting. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between the two and how we coach ourselves around the new year intentions and how we work with our clients.
I think we have like a perfect example already.
Oh, do we?
Of today.
Have I provided one?
Well, first let's talk about, let's set it like our last webcast. Let's set an intention for our audience today. Mm-hmm. So what would you like them to get out of today's webcast?
I would like, as with, I think, sort of my goal for the year, my intention for the webcast is to provide tools and mindsets and frameworks for people to approach life, work, passions, in a way that's ultimately kinder to themselves. I think a lot of times, goals are set and we are sort of at the mercy and kind of get beat up in the process of the goals. So keeping ourselves and compassion for ourselves in the mix when we're thinking about the new year.
The only thing I would add is I hope that people from this, the intention is to hear that two people who are pretty driven, right? We've been Olympians. We've gone to high level.
Are we big driven? Was that what we are?
Yeah, we're driven.
No, I know. I just like that term, big driven.
Big driven. We're big driven. That we kind of screwed up a little bit, but at the same time, we set big intentions and help our clients set big intentions and set ourselves up with big intentions, not to fail. But I think if we teach the audience or teach ourselves to set up these big intentions with some room, that we could really grow from them. So I think some permission and progress and how and what tools can help us with those things. So that's what my intention is for today. But I think you have a really good story about how we, have the best of intentions or big intentions, and then it all goes to pot. What happened this morning?
Well, so I've spent, I've been really, I think one of the ways that I think about new energy, new intention is like space. And so I had moved everything in my office to the other end. I painted things. I spent hours getting that space like decluttered and ready for the podcast, bought new lighting, and this morning, the new router booster wasn't working, so I had to take all my equipment downstairs and set up in a new location. So my intention around like this new space and having things be more streamlined and less chaotic, this already failed.
Well, I would see it as we're still making progress because we still showed up right after the holidays. Right after the holidays, your kids are not in school yet, and we're still showing up. It's not exactly how we pictured it, but we're still making progress towards our goals or our intentions of being creative in the webcast. So, I mean, that's kind of what these intentions are. And that's why I think goals don't give a ton of permission, because if the goal is I've got to do it in this room because I've set it up and the webcast has to be here and like this, then it doesn't give us enough permission to flex. So then now you flexed and now you actually look great in this new space. I love the
Yes,
cabinet
I've heard the
behind you.
lighting is better here.
Yeah.
Gotten the feedback.
So, with a little bit of grace, I would start with my story of last year. Last year, and I'm notorious of setting goals, running towards them. You know, every 4 years we would set a goal of making the Olympic team. I tried out for 3 of them. You know, I'm very comfortable around setting goals and nailing them, checking them off the list.
Yeah, kind of.
I'm very good at that. Full force forward. And you know what? Honestly, a lot of my clients come to me because they know I know how to organize myself around goals and they want that help as well. So I can definitely do that. But last year I started with just an intention, less is more. And it so turned out that in August, less is more meant quitting the VP of coaching role at Valor and starting work as a coach more full time and doing this webcast with you and working with you a little bit more. But it was very ethereal, you know, it wasn't like tangible, but I did less is more. And that's where I ended up at the end of the year. And it was really uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable because I talked to you many times when you were deeply uncomfortable. So I think that's really important to name also just when in general, when we're talking about goals that, you know, the ultimate is a feeling state that is different and an improvement on how you're feeling now. But the process often feels worse. And I feel like I have to remind my clients all the time, just because you're feeling lousy right now doesn't mean you're not making a lot of progress.
Yes, I would say that too. Even though you feel really frustrated that you had to bring all your
Well, what I
stuff
really, yeah, I know. I think I'm gonna. Well, I wish I could sort of we'll just pan out, right? Like here's the situation here, right? Like everything's a mess. I've got a light. I'm sort of in a corner, right? But that's the reality of it.
Yes, and I think that's what's. So with my story, it was totally uncomfortable, and I think you've been a part of it, and it's still uncomfortable. And I think the latest part of it is I've been struggling with how does one that is untraining from being less busy day to day, because that was less is more was more about like choosing a lot less of yes and having enough space and time for myself. How does one, as she gets to this state, which I've put myself in, how do I then approach with intention? How do I approach the year with some intention? So you mentioned something about feeling state. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit more about that. So if you were coaching me through, oh my gosh, Whitney, I'm feeling really uncomfortable. I don't want to add a ton of things, but how do I set some focus or intention for the year? What would you say to me?
Well, I would say, what is it you're hoping to feel more of in this year? You know, so if last year was creating a little bit more space and you achieve that, what is it that you hope for Iris at the end of this year?
That's a good question, because I'm thinking when I was in a busy state, I didn't have time to think about anything. And I always wanted more space. Now that I have more space, I'm feeling really great, but I'm feeling also kind of bored. I'm like, So it's a really good question because I'm not really sure what I want more of. And I'm wondering if that's the intention of, I like to think about the year in smaller chunks, like 3 months or 6 months. In the next 3 months, what is one thing that I want to feel more of? And I'm wondering if it's, and I'm thinking on the spot right now, and I think I'm wondering if it's more of mental challenges. Because coaching is great, has a bunch of challenges. You're working with your clients, but I think I like things to be new and different, or something. My word is spicy. Like I need a little spice. It's been a little bland.
Edge.
An edge.
Yeah, you want to push your edge a little bit more.
Right. So how do we push
before you
the
were
edge?
backing away from the edge, which was pushing your edge, and now you're sort of on the plateau, which is good. You achieve that, but now what edges do I want to approach within yourself? And you know, it's what I always say to my kids, like, there's nothing wrong with being bored. It just means something's about to happen. You're about to figure something out. But if you're always in a play date or on the TV, you never have a chance to get bored. And then you never have a chance to get creative.
That's the other thing, is in the boredom, to be more intentional about that boredom too. Mm-hmm. Meaning it's not quite boredom, but maybe I've been thinking about a framework, Whitney, around pushing, pulling, like pushing, pulling back, right? Or pausing. So pausing is just that state of like, hold on a second, let me reevaluate. So I definitely feel like I'm in that state of, let me take a pause for a second. And maybe that is the question. And maybe that's the question for 3 months. And that's the intention, is what do I need more of? And instead of going, what I usually like to do is pushing in full force towards something, giving myself a chance to take a pause and kind of dip my toe in different things. I've recently signed up for some improv classes, as I've told you. My husband and I will take some art classes. I'm going to do some more reading and some more research. But I think in the pause, it's also recognizing that I'm dipping my toe in different places.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like boredom to me.
I know, but it's not like a...
I think your achieving self is bored.
Yeah, tell me more about that. My achieving self is bored.
Well, we talk a lot about, or in our coaching, that we're not all one thing. You're not all Iris the achiever. You're not all Iris the improv taker, right? We have these different parts, and the different parts have different agendas, different jobs, different roles, different feelings. And, there's your achiever manager part has been so running the show, right? Iris have to do this. Iris have to blah, 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 like, that you haven't had a chance for some of these other parts to play, right? So now that you've done the enormous work of untraining the manager to be in the lead, and that manager gets to be, that overachiever gets to sort of pause, and you have access to more of these parts, then there's a part that gets to do improv and suck at it. There's a part like that you did last year. I mean, I'm not saying you will, but like,
I will.
Your achiever part wouldn't have let you do something you would suck at, right? So you learned skiing last year. Every day you told me how much you sucked at it and you were afraid of it, right? But that was a very new edge. So your manager achiever part might be bored with skiing because you're going 2 miles an hour, and might be bored with art classes because like, ugh, where's this getting us? And, where's the accolade here? It's not feeding it, but it's allowing all these other parts to get to play. So that's one perspective.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I think I'm getting coached in real time. So I think it's really important, as I sort of break that boundary to the audience and say, this is what coaching is we're exploring these different parts. And you notice I'm trying to get to a conclusion of, I want this to be intention. Maybe the intention is this, and maybe the intention is that. And then now I'm thinking, oh, maybe the intention is for the next 3 months, just tapping into creativity or playing or discovering what the achiever is about. So I think it's interesting, as we set these goals, we don't realize that there's 100 layers deeper to the why underneath all those things.
And if I go back to my goal for our podcast was to play and to get to be creative and practice having a voice, none of that got derailed by doing this in my living room versus my office. It's all still intact. That's just sort of a housekeeping annoyance at this point.
But that's the other thing is, again, just to underscore the point of when we set rigidity to the goals or intentions without exploration, we don't give enough permission to explore all sides of it. And then if you do get derailed, right? So many of my clients are looking to be better organized. They're looking to lose some weight. They're looking to put more intention around with their families and put less into professional bucket and more into the personal bucket. And we can so often get so derailed really quickly if we put a lot of rigidity around it. We can put some structure, but there has to be some wiggle room, some space.
Well, and I like the idea of like going deeper. Like the question I often ask is, for the sake of what? So I want to be more organized. Well, for the sake of what? Well, that's what everyone's doing on Pinterest. That's what I should do. No, that's not an answer. For the sake of what? Do you want to feel does that make you feel more relaxed? Does that make you feel that you were spending your time more efficiently? What is it that's below organized that is really hungry in you?
Yeah, let's think about it for my example, right? So what is it below the achievement stuff is I've been doing a lot of things that are very self-validating. And I think there's a piece of me that feels like, I really want something that's outwardly validating that other people can see.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking about the why underneath that is I'm very driven by that. And
yeah, you have been for a very long time. It's hard to untrain
that
part of yourself to allow more room for other parts.
But I also think it's a discovery, and sometimes what I don't do is realizing the little bits and pieces that are coming through that are that. So, for example, this is a small piece of wanting that outside validation, right? Putting it out there, but it's not all driven by that. So I think it's also recognizing that when things are happening and progressing, it might not look exactly how you want it to or how you expect it to, but you need to recognize when those little things are happening, like the weight loss, right? So so I'm using weight loss as an example because that's what a lot of people
because it's such a common one.
Such a common one. You might not be moving things on the scale just yet, but what have you changed in your diet? Do you feel better? Are you feeling accomplished? Like, what are the little things that you're doing to change? And I think it's more about consistency of that practice. And we can only get that consistency with some permission. I just wanted to kind of shift and talk a little bit about what are some tools we can give for if we're setting some intentions to shift. I like the deeper why stuff, but what else could we offer?
Well, I think there's lots out there, and we can put some in the notes that are just sort of some prompts that are nice questions to get you thinking. So I think number one, create some space. Don't just think about it while you're driving to work one day. Like, actually give it some intentional space. And we can give you some questions to ponder. Two, don't feel like just because it's January 2nd, 3rd, 4th, like you have to have this goal that you're putting on the refrigerator. You can give yourself all of January to sort of play with it, think about it, explore it. And a lot of what fuels it is sort of reflecting on the last year, and thinking about what did you do? What did you not do? What felt good? What was left undone? Thinking about it that way. So I would say, give it some time. Don't feel like it has to happen all at once. And then once you are more clear about it, share it with people that you care about. So it's not just sort of a secret in there. And then my question that I am often asking my clients and myself, like, where are the resources for this intention? Where, if, one of the things we untrain is like, it's not just all grit and motivation from in here, but how do we resource from outside as well? So you've got the internal and then the external supporting you. So what are those external resources that you need to put into place so that it's not all like a muscle endeavor?
I know so many of us want to just go it alone.
Well, and also I think when things are vulnerable, that's when people like to do it alone, or many people have been trained that that's sort of how you do things. But, resourcing and support are unbelievably valuable. And even telling people about it.
Yeah, I think also when you're in an uncomfortable state like I'm in, with what's my intention? Where am I going to focus? How am I going to know I'm going to be successful? I think it really helps to have someone like you who's a partner to me that has some history with me, that understands and says, hey, where is that coming from? I think one time I came to you and I said, oh my God, I need my PCC. I've got to go. And you're like, okay, like slow down.
I know when you're in like, there was like a month where you're like, I think I'm going to get my PhD. I'm like, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to do that.
Oh, every month I think I'm going to, because I'm still trying to discover who I am when I grow up. So
you stopped doing that, but there was like a month you were like going to be ahead of HR. You were going to get your PhD. You were going to
I was going to do there was everything. So I go to you and I say this, and I think you help set me back onto the path of let's go back to what you're working on instead of trying to deviate, because that again, something new like that helps to deviate my attention from what I've been working on, which is less is more, not creating so much busyness for myself to self-validate. All those things were things in tempo. And then what I
But
want
I
to do
think,
is take myself out of that tempo and distract
yeah.
myself.
Well, it's like your achiever is when you said to your achiever, less is more, it feels like the emperor without any clothes, right? Like it just feels stripped and vulnerable. And so it's like PhD, head of HR, right? It's like grasping at something to make it feel better.
I think you said to me once that the closer you get to where you want to go, those old voices are going to be as, yeah.
I learned that, my first professional job was working with addictions. And I myself have healed from an addiction. And I think that I learned that so deeply that when you get close, the closer you get to sort of passing some significant milestones towards health or recovery, it's like a last ditch effort of the old. It's like, no, I want all the negative voices, all the old thought patterns are just like roaring to the surface. And I think the more when you know that's coming, like when we recorded our first podcast a few days ago, oh my God, imposter syndrome, like through the roof. But, I can coach okay, this is normal, Whitney. Of course this is happening. Mm-hmm. This makes so much sense. These voices are just old voices, wait them out. They'll go away eventually. And I don't have to respond to them. So knowing that when you make a lot of progress is sometimes when the old makes a final push, can, I think, just make it more comfortable to know that's normal.
And I'm going to relate it to that framework of pause. There's nothing that you need to push or pull in that moment when those voices come up. Yeah. You can take a pause and you don't have to react. I think that's an important lesson that you learn over time.
Yeah. Just like Nemo, just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Maybe that's the intention. Just keep swimming.
Keep swimming. Get really clear about your goals. Bring people in and around you to support them. Take some time with it, and then just keep swimming.
I think I'll add a couple of things, just because I'm a bullet point strategery kind of person. So
those were my bullet points. I just did bullet points. No,
I will bullet point some of the things that I've done with my clients. So you like my strategery word. So I think about some clients like to focus on one word. I have one client/friend focusing in on connection, and that's the intention, sending an intention out into the universe of I'd like more connection. A lot of us are looking for that, especially when we're still recovering in a pandemic, right? So another one is a mantra. I had a mantra last year of doing dope shit with dope people. And that's still kind of in the back of my mind because like connection, I want to keep gathering really fun people to work with. So that's in line with the creativity that we talked about earlier. And then some people, my engineer type people like buckets. So a lot of coaches will use, or life coaches will use kind of buckets of professional, personal, family, and community. You can make the buckets whatever you want. And with some of my clients, we've done very, what are the stats here? How much percentage do you feel like you're, again, back to the feelings, do you feel like you're spending in each of these buckets? And what of these buckets do you want to shift? Do you want to put more in one, less in the other? And for why? And so we start the conversation with the buckets to kind of help frame up those things. There's also the life wheel. I mean, people use that as well. You can look that up. We can provide that as a resource. And then you can kind of think about where I want to shift. However, whenever I do that work with my clients, the other bullet point is we start very small. Mm-hmm. We have a whole year. We start very small. And nothing derails you faster than big, ambiguous goals that you cannot reach. And that is also a strategy to keep you from shifting. Oh, you see, I didn't do it. You see, I didn't get to it, or
once
again, I'm a failure. So I think your body responds to some confidence. So you want to give yourself some support and confidence, and using smaller types of intentions or goals do help when you want some things that are pretty static. Like some of my clients really want to work on having healthier morning routines. And so we start really small. What will make you feel successful at the end of the month of January? Okay, going to the gym 3 times a week for 30 minutes. Okay, let's track the progress. And that's the fun part about having a coach is they hold some accountability and can help you track some of that progress together.
It's calling to mind. I saw a little clip from Marie Forleo, and she says, one of her whole things, I think she's book on it, is nothing is unfigureoutable. Like other than death, gravity, sort of these bigger forces, that nothing is unfigureoutable. And we just have to, when we hit obstacles, when we hit blocks, that's okay. That's part of it. But again, that's where I speak to the resources. Like, well, when you fall off, like who's going to help you get back and figure out how to get back on so that it's not just you either muscle through it or you fail.
It's interesting. I have just a quick example of what it feels like when you set these very broad, ambiguous goals. So when I was in business school and we had to do these like proofs or logic proofs, I would look at the problem and immediately think, this is too big for me to solve. And every time I felt like I was kind of failing at it, I'm a perfectionist. So if I feel like I'm going to fail right away, the panic comes in, the anxiety comes in. And I would go to my husband, who's an engineer, and he's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not sure what the answer is, but let's break this down into smaller pieces and smaller chunks. And suddenly the puzzle wasn't so overwhelming. It was broken down into smaller chunks. And so that's exactly what we're talking about is the problem. You might feel like, losing 30 pounds, it's so hard and I can't do it. But working with someone that can kind of help you step out, give some perspective, and then break things down into smaller pieces helps you kind of see and gives you some confidence that you can make some progress. That's important in these intention settings. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
You're making progress towards your goals. You're experimenting. You're taking steps to try new things that may be fulfilling and get you to your edge. I've got a nice reframe around I am perfectly aligned with my goals of more creativity, playing with creativity this year. So it's all good.
One thing I'm going to take away that you said that actually struck a chord with me is you can take the month of January and you can figure it out. It doesn't have to be that today is January 3rd and we have to figure out what we're going to do for the year. Otherwise, we're going to just fail. That's what's in my head. So I think, again, it's space and permission to set these things up and set yourself up. You figure
your goals out by the end of January, by the time most people have abandoned theirs, and you're good to go.
Exactly. All right. Well, I hope you've learned something. I hope you got to know us a little bit more, and we'll add some resources.
We're excited to spend 2023 with you.
Bye.
Keep untraining. Bye.